Okay, so I have these, and you know, it's hard to do these pieces much smaller than this. I thought maybe I tried this idea where I just kind of did a square, a little larger than I need, and I just placed a triangle on and just quickly stitched across it and then folded back. And that way I get the corner really easily and I can cut this piece away. But what I like is that I could come back in now and make my piece. I could even adjust it so that there's a tiny little bit before I iron around it, and that way I could get a smaller bit of color, I think. So kind of like this, actually. Look how small I was able to get that piece by doing it that way. So now I've got just another scale, really. Now I just like the tinier and tinier bits. I even did one on a 1-inch square. Same kind of method. And you know, I think that, look at the size of these scissors. Speaking of little things, these are just a big old pair of scissors. So anyway, and then if I came back in and ironed this in, I would even get a smaller spot. But you know, the idea now with these modular pieces, working with 3-inch squares and 1-inch squares, you can start to plan different placements of things. So I'm really enjoying this. I've also got myself here another base that's just sort of strips of 3, because that's something easy to do, and they can always be put together in a freer form of the 9, you know. And I'm even thinking that it might be nice to come back in with the classic patchworks maybe, and you know, play around. You know, there's an infinite number of grids in front of you. A lot of times you think of the one that you're focused on, but you can always apply kind of layers of grid. So this is another way to compose one kind of technique or grid over another. So I'm really playing with these ideas. I also, went in and did some of that idea that I talked about, which was just dipping the corners of things. I mean, that's another whole way to get little bits of color. For some reason, I had this really old cloth, and it really seems to run, but you know, there's nothing to keep me from actually coming in and kind of clamping the tips and dipping those in dye so I get a cleaner line. But there's a lot to play with. I even did some smaller ones where I, instead of dipping it in dye, I actually dipped the back in dye and just left the original color as the bit of color. That works too. So yeah, I mean, there's just many ways now for me to think about this corner idea. You know, I do like to make myself these little variations, these components, so that I have more choices. And the more techniques that you explore with each idea, the more expansive your composition can be based, can be configured on, because just the idea of corners here, you know, I've got a patchwork one, I've got dyed ones, and I've got big ones and small ones, and perhaps I'll have soft edge ones and sharper ones, and then I want to experiment with stitch a little bit as well. So I'm starting to form a kind of a bank of components that all are centered around little bits of color in the corner. And I already have, you know, new opportunities for composition. I've even got just the corners themselves. There's no reason they can't be used either, you know. some freeway. I even like the way that they have wings here.